So I was curious to talk to you today about the Fairfield community where you live.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Well, Fairfield is about 35 minutes south of where I'm from in Keota.
Okay.
And as southeast Iowa is speckled with hundreds of rural communities, Fairfield is a notable place that's distinguishable from our other rural communities. So how is it that you could describe how is Fairfield distinguishable?
That's a very good question. What makes you think that Fairfield is so different? I mean, what gives?
Just this morning I was speaking to somebody in Loveland, Colorado, and in that conversation, when I said where I lived, and I said I was coming down to Fairfield this morning, their response was, "Oh, Fairfield, Parsons College."
Oh, Parsons College, yeah.
Yeah, so people have that connection. Now, Parsons College had closed before I was born, but I've heard that from people as a context of what Fairfield meant to them some 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You didn't live here at that time. You're from somewhere else.
I was
Maybe
barely
start
born. Yeah, it's just interesting you're bringing that up. We just got an Emmy for a documentary about Parsons College. Mainly my friends, Dick DeAngelis and Jason Strong, made a very powerful documentary about Parsons College, and they got an Emmy award. I was also involved a little bit, but not very much. It's mainly their honor, and that's a great feather in the cap for Fairfield, I think. And Parsons College was, of course, there right up until the time that MIU, Maharishi International University, took it over, and that's probably one reason that people think of Fairfield being a little bit different, right? Because we have two cities here. We have a traditional city, and maybe we could call it a new age city with people who might have been meditating or are meditating, and that's a little bit different than your standard rural American Iowa small city with 10,000 people, right? So
when I think of Fairfield, it isn't MUM University that first comes to mind. It is the entrepreneurship that this community is known for. And so are those two intimately connected, or was Parsons College and the history of Parsons College part of that legacy that makes this community known for entrepreneurship and MUM certainly brings forth a culture and a worldliness, but was there already something here in that and entrepreneurship and openness to businesses and small community that?
Yeah, probably. I think a lot of the graduates from Parsons actually left Fairfield and became very successful out of town, but some of them obviously stayed here. I don't know much about the history. I just know that Fairfield, for many different reasons, has developed into a very interesting, we could call it a social experiment. You know, this mixture of traditional values and less traditional values have created kind of a strange animal called Fairfield, Iowa, that we probably can't find anywhere else on the planet. It's a very interesting melting pot of new and old values.
I'm somewhat interested in Iowa's towns and how they got their names from. So the Keota community is a combination of the name Keokuk and Washington. So Chief Keokuk, as in the mid-1800s, when he made his final departure from eastern Iowa and was forced west, Keokuk County became established by the mid-late 1800s. But there's a story of people gathering in Richland by the hundreds because land was going to be released to the north. The government was going to release those lands, and there was one of those races where everybody gathers in their chuck wagons and they fire a gun, and everybody can take their horses out north and pick their own plot of land. And this is also a scene in some popular Western movies.
Yeah.
But just to the south of that, to the south of Richland, 10 to 15 miles was Fairfield. Probably already existed in name at that time. So it's interesting, it didn't adopt the name of a famous Native American chief. It didn't adopt the name of, the first president of the United States. It adopted the name Fairfield.
Right. and I've heard, but I'm not a historian, I've heard that the Native American tribes used to be coming from different places and congregating here to do what we could call community dialogues, communicating with each other and exchanging things. And maybe it's deep in the soil here, that feeling of community that I appreciate so much in Fairfield.
I'm glad you said that.
And that's the reason I'm here and not in Denmark, which is also a very, very nice place. Small country with nice community values. But I've been going back and forth a lot, been traveling a lot back and forth in other places, and I really feel that this is a very uniquely soft atmosphere and very conducive to creativity and new ideas, and just letting it all hang out and do whatever you can do without feeling a lot of resistance from the environment.
Now, there is Chautauqua Park on the east side of the community.
That was the word I was looking for, Chautauqua. That was what it was called.
Chautauqua, okay.
That meeting ground.
Native American. Now, that word probably means meeting ground in...
Probably.
What do they call the native languages? It starts with an A. I'm not going to be able to grasp it.
Okay.
But the Chautauqua Park was a meeting place, and today is just a nice park area with trails and
I don't know if the meeting place was right in that park, but the park got that name, Chautauqua, and that was the name apparently of this meeting ground around here that was common.
There have been Native American artifacts in that area of the this county, I guess. And so interesting connection between the Native Americans having this region as kind of a communal meeting ground, and then what became the name Fairfield, possibly. We're just theorizing here, but the opportunity to talk about this and have it be maybe a YouTube video would mean people could comment, correct us, tell us if we're wrong.
Well, again, I have to refer to all these wonderful documentaries that Dick DeAngelis and Jason Strong and other people have produced, because they go in much detail about how the name Fairfield came about. There was a lady, I forget her name, who wrote a book, and I think she was one of the people who helped coin the name Fairfield. But again, I'm not a historian, so it's a great thing we have these documentaries. And they start all the way back before Fairfield with the Native Americans, and then they go further and further up in time.
Do you ever wonder what is next? When we talk about Fairfield, we're talking about 150 years, right? So what is Fairfield 150 years from now? Is there a vision for this community that you know of, or your own vision for what is to become of the efforts that are unique in this community? And those efforts are what you described, an energy surrounding community, community dialogues, a place for businesses, education, people fulfilling, as you described, what they're meant to do. Who they really are is respected in this community and encouraged.
Yeah. I personally believe that the future is not fixed. It's not written in stone. It very much depends on what we do every moment. In other words, the future is flexible It's moldable, it can be changed. And I have no idea what the future is 150 years from now in Fairfield, but I think it's positive. I think it's probably a good future. It's just, rather than thinking of the future, we have to think about the present moment, what we can do to make a good foundation for the future in every moment, basically.
This dwindles away from Fairfield in conversation a little, but it is the case in American society that people are less happy than they have ever been. And we can talk about social media and its role in the destruction of communities across the United States. But that presence in the moment that you just described is so important and fundamental to happiness. So is that something that is in Fairfield more than other communities?
Is Fairfield happier than other communities around here? Probably, I don't know. How can we measure happiness? It's just, I see these things about the happiest country in the world, and I think Denmark was one of them for some years. Now it's Finland. Where's that coming from? Statistics, social economics. I know for a fact that Denmark actually is not that happy. So, anyways, it's a good question. I think that happiness is based in the ability to really be silent and listen to nature. And there's a lot of nature around here. We have a wonderful trail system, about 20 miles of trails and lakes and all that kind of thing. So I think that's important for human happiness. I think there's a much stronger connection between humans and nature than we think in everyday life. The more we can be in contact with nature, the better the future looks, I think.
Very cool. There's a movie called Blue Zones. It's also a book, but it's about having happiness in our communities and living to be centurions. Okay, so this idea that
by the way, I'm aiming for 120.
Cool.
No, it's documented. We'll see this video some years from now and see if I'm
when
still
you
around.
were a young man back in these days. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you talked about trails a moment ago, and in that program about Blue Zones, having natural spaces in a community are one of the prongs of long vitality in life. And so Fairfield is an example of a community that has focused on the natural spaces. You have a beautiful square and architecture in the center of the square. There's kind of a community large gazebo where there's performances.
And a sculpture of apparently one of the first people who lived here. His name was Coop, and maybe his son or a young friend. There's some roots here also. Not nearly as old as the roots I'm used to in Denmark, obviously. Goes much further back, but nevertheless, there's roots, there's culture, there's tradition. And well, if you go back to the Native American culture, of course, the roots are very deep and very old. And that's actually probably the real foundation for Fairfield. We can't think of it as being 150 years old, right? It's much older than that. And anyways, we promised ourselves to keep this talk about Fairfield short. So maybe this would be a good time to conclude. And what is the conclusion, Levi?
Well, my community, as I stated, is a rural community, has lots going for it. We still have an independent school district, which is a pride point in our community. But it's very different from Fairfield because we don't have a university in our town. And we like many rural communities, are struggling to meet essential needs like childcare. And Fairfield, this is supposed to be a conclusion, but Fairfield has some of those entities, and I think that talking about what's going for Fairfield, as we have, is good context for communities around Iowa just to take a look at.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe there are features that Fairfield has going for it. Maybe there are things that other communities have as strengths. And those communities hopefully will talk about those strengths also. And then as a community of Southeast Iowa or Iowa, our ruralness can all work together.
Yeah. So my conclusion is Fairfield is Fairfield, whatever that means. And like every other community, it's unique. The reason I'm here is because I really like being here. Other people might not like being here, and this is just depending on their personal signature, we could say. And it's just a unique place to be, and I would encourage a lot of people to consider moving here.